Welcome to the deep dive. Staying truly well-informed these days, it feels like you need to wade through just endless articles, endless research.
It really does.
Imagine, though, having a personal guide, someone to just distill the really important nuggets of knowledge from, well, a whole stack of sources.
Getting you those aha moments without all the overload.
Exactly. And that's really our mission today.
Precisely. We're going to navigate some significant shifts and maybe some surprising facts from a recent September 2024 Current Affairs magazine.
Yeah, we'll try to extract the core insights, looking at everything from, say, India's political reforms, ambitious space plans,
Right through to its digital economic transformation and even cultural heritage changes. We want to give you that shortcut, basically, to genuinely understanding what's unfolding.
Okay, so let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Let's start with a topic that's definitely been stirring up a lot of conversation in Indian politics, the One Nation, One Election initiative. This isn't just about tweaking schedules. It seems like a pretty fundamental shift in how elections might happen.
It really is. The Union Cabinet just recently approved the recommendations from that high-level committee, the one chaired by Mr. Ramnath Kovind.
Right.
And the core idea is, well, pretty straightforward on the surface. Hold elections for state assemblies and the Lok Sabha at the same time.
Simultaneous elections, moving away from the current system, which feels like there's almost always an election happening somewhere.
Exactly. That sort of staggered, almost continuous cycle.
Okay. So when you look at the arguments for it, the money aspect jumps out immediately, doesn't it?
It really does. The figures are quite stark. The 2014 Lok Sabha polls cost, 3,870 crore?
Yeah.
But then just one state election, like Bihar in 2015, cost 300 crore on its own.
Wow.
And the estimate for actually implementing one nation, one election, is pegged around 4,500 crore, supposedly for the first cycle.
So what's the kind of the deeper thinking behind that cost reduction argument? Is it just saving cash?
Well, the financial saving is obvious, but I think the deeper goal here is an attempt to re-engineer the whole rhythm of India's democracy, you could say.
Re-engineer the rhythm.
Think about rerouting all those national resources, time, money, personnel that currently get soaked up by this constant electoral machinery.
Right, pulling them back into development work.
Exactly. And it's not just the government saving money. Political parties would save a lot on campaigning, too.
Oh, interesting.
And that could potentially disproportionately benefit smaller regional parties, the ones that often struggle to raise funds for election after election.
Okay. That makes sense. So beyond the money, what about the impact on, actual governance? People talk about constant elections disrupting progress.
That's another key argument. Simultaneous elections would mean the model code of conduct kicks in for a much shorter defined period nationally.
So less disruption to development projects and policy decisions, that policy paralysis people mention.
Precisely. Fewer elections also mean less strain on the state machinery. The administrative resources, police forces, teachers used for polling duties.
Right.
Potentially leading to more consistent, maybe more efficient governance. And the Law Commission even suggested it might boost voter turnout.
How so?
The idea being perhaps that citizens might find it easier, more convenient to participate if all the major elections happen together in one go.
Okay, those benefits sound pretty compelling on paper, but the whole idea of fixed terms for governments, it does raise some red flags for people, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And this is where the debate gets really, really intricate.
What are the main worries?
Critics argue that these regular staggered elections, they're actually crucial. They keep governments on their toes, responsive, accountable.
Because they have to face the voters more often.
Exactly. The worry is that fixed terms, while efficient, might foster a bit of autocracy, reducing that immediate pressure from the electorate. Then there are big federalism concerns. India is so diverse. Could simultaneous national elections overshadow critical state-specific issues?
Yeah, I can see that. Regional parties might feel their voice gets drowned out.
That's the fear. That it could weaken their significance. It really boils down to finding that balance between efficiency and, democratic integrity. Regular voter expression versus streamlined governance.
So, given how huge a change this is and these valid concerns, what's the actual path forward? Is this happening soon?
Well, it's definitely not a simple switch you just flip. The government still needs to build an all-party consensus. That's crucial before any constitutional amendments could even be tabled.
Okay.
They're also waiting on the final comprehensive 22nd Law Commission report, which is looking specifically at simultaneous elections.
Right.
And beyond the politics, a key recommendation was about increasing public awareness.
Yeah.
Widespread media campaigns to really inform people about what this involves.
It would affect everyone.
Absolutely. It's a massive change.
And this little fact really puts it in context. If India actually does this,
No.
it would join Belgium, Sweden, and South Africa as like only the 4th country in the world to hold elections this way.
Only the 4th. Wow.
Yeah. For a democracy of India's scale and complexity, that would set a pretty unique precedent, wouldn't it?
Absolutely unique. A huge experiment, really.
Okay, so from reshaping democracy on the ground, let's shift our gaze upwards, way upwards.
Space.
To space. ISRO's vision seems incredibly ambitious right now. The Union Cabinet just greenlit expansions for Chandrayaan-4, the Venus mission, Shukran, and maybe most excitingly, India's own space station.
The Bharatiya Antriksh Station, yes. It's a major statement, isn't it? It really underscores India's move from being, a significant regional space player to aiming for genuine autonomy and leadership on the global stage.
Totally. Okay, let's break these down. Shukran first, the Venus orbiter mission. What's the plan there?
Right, so Shukran, the launch target is currently set for 2028.
Okay.
And the main goal, to get a really close look at Venus, study its surface, that incredibly thick atmosphere, any volcanic activity, and how the solar wind batters its ionosphere.
Why Venus? It seems like such a hostile place.
Well, that's part of the mystery.
Yeah.
Why did Venus, our sort of sister planet, end up so different? It's about understanding planetary evolution, runaway greenhouse effects, things potentially relevant to Earth, too.
Okay. And the mission itself?
It's planned as a 4-year mission. It'll operate in this highly elliptical orbit, swinging way out to 60,000 kilometers, then diving down to just 500 kilometers above the surface.
Wow, that's quite a range. Gives different perspectives.
Exactly. Allows for diverse observations. And it'll be packed with instruments.
Like what?
About 12 key ones, I believe. Things like synthetic aperture radar, or SAR, to peer through those thick clouds and map the surface, and maybe even subsurface structures.
Clever.
An infrared camera for thermal mapping, a mass spectrometer to sniff the atmosphere's composition, an ultraviolet camera for the upper atmosphere and clouds. A whole suite.
And is India doing this alone?
Not entirely. There's significant international collaboration baked in. Partnerships with NASA, CNES from France, and also Russia are involved.
Good to see that cooperation. Okay, now, Chandrayaan-4. This sounds even more complex. Sample return.
Yes, this is a huge leap. The objective is to collect lunar samples, rocks, soil, and bring them back to Earth. India's first ever lunar sample return mission.
Schedules for when?
Aiming for 2027. And you're right, the complexity is dialed way up. It's not just landing, it's landing, collecting, taking off again, and coming home.
So how many parts does that involve?
5 distinct spacecraft modules. You've got the propulsion system to get it there, the descender to land, and a sender to lift off from the moon.
Okay.
A transfer module to bring the sample back towards Earth orbit, and finally a re-entry module to get the sample safely through our atmosphere.
Phew. That's a lot of moving parts. And how are they launching all this?
This is where it gets really innovative for ISRO, and a bit of a first for them. They plan to launch these modules using 2 separate rockets.
2 rockets for 1 mission.
Yes, and then get this, they'll perform 2 separate space docking operations in Earth orbit to assemble the necessary configuration before heading to the moon.
2 dockings. ISRO hasn't done that before, have they?
Nope, this will be a first. A really significant demonstration of their capability in complex orbital maneuvers.
Incredible. Which rockets are they using?
The big one, the Launch Vehicle Mark III, the LMV-3, will carry the heavier bits, propulsion, descender, ascender.
Right.
And the workhorse PSLV, the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, will carry the transfer and re-entry modules.
This sounds like a crucial stepping stone, then.
Absolutely. It feeds directly into ISRO's longer-term ambitions. Landing Indian astronauts on the moon by 2040, developing that space station by 2035. These complex missions build the technology and experience needed.
Okay, let's talk about that space station, the Bharatiya Antriksh Station, or BAS. An Indian space station in low Earth orbit. What's the vision there? Is it like a mini ISS?
Sort of, but with a key difference. It's expected to be operational by 2035, and yes, it'll host astronauts, probably for missions lasting 15 to 20 days initially.
For science experiments.
Exactly. Microgravity experiments, space biology, material science. But the crucial point is autonomy. Unlike the ISS, which is this massive international collaboration,
Right.
the BAS will be entirely operated by India. It's a statement of self-reliance in space.
So, a national laboratory in orbit.
Precisely. serving as a platform for science and also a vital stepping stone, a base camp, if you will, for potentially longer duration missions, maybe even future interplanetary journeys.
Wow. Okay, from the vastness of space, let's bring it right back down to Earth. To the soil, actually.
Agriculture.
Exactly. Technology seems poised to reshape one of India's most foundational sectors. The Union Cabinet has approved a digital agriculture mission, and there's also this AgroSure Fund and a Krishi Nivesh portal. Sounds like a big digital push.
It really is. The Digital Agriculture Mission, or DAM, it comes with a pretty hefty budget, 2,817 crore total, with the central government putting in about 8,940 crore of that.
Okay, so what's it meant to actually do for farmers?
Well, the key benefits they're highlighting are things like getting much more accurate crop yield estimates using something called the Digital General Crop Estimation Survey, or DGCES.
Better data, basically.
Better data, yes.
Yeah.
Also, they see potential for generating quite a bit of employment, maybe 250,000 trained youth and Krishi Sakis involved in data collection and support.
Interesting.
Enabling digital authentication for farmers, making it much easier for them to access government services, subsidies, loans, all that stuff.
Streamlining access. And what about things like planning or disasters?
Yeah, that's in there too. Using tech for better crop mapping and monitoring. This could help with faster disaster response, smoother insurance claims, and even offering more personalized advice to farmers on crop planning, pest control, irrigation, optimizing the whole agricultural value chain.
That all sounds fantastic in theory, but you know, if I'm a small farmer, maybe in a remote village, how real are these benefits going to be? What are the roadblocks?
And that is the absolute critical question, isn't it? The implementation hurdles are significant.
Like what?
Well, first off, the digital literacy gap. Many farmers, especially older ones or those in very rural areas, might not be comfortable with the tech.
Right. Connectivity, too, I imagine.
Absolutely. Patchy internet access, unreliable electricity supply in many parts of rural India. These are fundamental infrastructure challenges. And then there are valid data privacy concerns, particularly with ideas like AgriStack, this proposed massive centralized digital database of farmers and their land. Who owns the data? How is it protected? How is it used?
Yeah, those are big questions.
Plus the cost. Advanced tech like drones, IoT sensors for soil monitoring, AI-driven analytics. These aren't cheap. How do small and marginal farmers afford them or get access? Requires a lot of support.
Definitely critical points for making it work on the ground.
Okay, let's touch on the other initiatives. The AgroSure Fund, what's that about? Fueling innovation.
Yes. AgroSure stands for AgriFund for Startups and Rural Enterprises Scheme, launched by the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare.
Okay.
It's basically a blended capital fund around 750 crore, pulling money from the government, NABARD, the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, and private investors.
And its goal?
To actively fund and nurture innovation in the agricultural and rural startup scene, specifically looking for those, high risk but potentially high impact ventures that could bring cutting edge solutions to the sector.
So backing new ideas. And NAB Ventures, a NABARD subsidiary, is managing it.
That's right. They act as the fund manager, identifying and supporting these startups.
Got it. And the Krishi Nivesh portal, is that like a one-stop shop for investors?
Exactly. It's designed as a centralized digital platform. If you're an investor looking at agriculture, you can go there to find information on various government schemes, benefits, opportunities, all in one place. So simplifying things for potential investors.
Right. The aim is to make agricultural investment easier, boost transparency by having info readily available, maybe even empower women entrepreneurs in agriculture specifically, and just provide comprehensive, reliable data for anyone looking to invest in the sector, bringing more organized capital in.
Okay, fascinating stuff happening in agriculture tech.
Okay.
Now, for our last stop on this deep dive, we pivot from the economic to the cultural, maybe even symbolic.
Right.
The recent decision by the government of India to rename Port Blair.
Yes, to Srivijayapura.
Exactly. This feels like more than just a name change. It's about, shedding a colonial past and linking to a deeper history?
That seems to be precisely the motivation. Port Blair, as we knew it, got its name from Archibald Blair, a British East India Company naval surveyor.
Right. The colonial connection is obvious there.
And of course, it's the capital of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, a strategically vital spot. It houses the Indian Navy's INS Jarawa, the Coast Guard.
And didn't you mention it hosts India's first integrated tri-command? Army, Navy, Air Force all working together there.
That's right, a key military hub.
But there's also that powerful symbolic layer, isn't there? Netaji Subhas Chandra Bose.
Absolutely. A moment etched in history, December 30th, 1943. Netaji raising the Indian national flag there on what was considered the first stretch of liberated Indian soil during WWII.
So it already had this deep connection to India's independence story. But the new name, Srivijayapuram, points much further back, doesn't it, to something less commonly known.
It really does. It connects the islands to the ancient Srivijaya Empire.
Srivijaya, based in Sumatra.
Yes, an incredibly influential maritime empire flourished for centuries, known for trade and spreading Buddhism across Southeast Asia.
Okay. And how did the Andamans connect to them?
Well, Srivijaya's influence waned, particularly around the 11th century. And part of that decline involved naval raids from the Chola dynasty, based in South India.
Ah, the Chola. So there's a direct link there that's often overlooked, isn't it?
It often is. Historical records, particularly Chola inscriptions, suggest that the powerful Emperor Rajendra Chola actually used the Andaman Islands as a strategic naval base during his campaigns against Srivijaya's ports.
Wow. A naval base in the Andamans in the 11th century?
Seems so. It was actually quite a rare instance of direct conflict in what were otherwise largely peaceful trade and cultural relations between India and Southeast Asia over centuries.
Is there any other evidence?
There's a linguistic clue, too. A Thurnjavur inscription from around 1050 CE refers to Nicobar as Manakavaram land.
Meaning?
Great open land, or land of the naked people, possibly. It's believed to be the origin, or at least an influence, on the modern name Nicobar.
That's fascinating. Such a deep historical thread being pulled forward.
Exactly. So renaming Port Blair to Srivijayapuram, it's not just erasing a colonial name. It feels like a deliberate act to honor the city's role in shaping independent India, yes, but also to reclaim these much deeper, richer historical ties to a significant maritime past connected to powerful Indian empires.
A real act of cultural reclamation.
I think that's a good way to put it.
Well, we've certainly covered a lot of ground today. Quite a journey, actually.
Who really have?
From the intricacies of electoral reform with one nation, one election.
To those really audacious leaps in space exploration ISRO's planning.
Then diving into the digital revolution, trying to transform agriculture.
And finally, that symbolic act of reclaiming history through renaming Port Blair.
Yeah. What really stands out, I think, is just how dynamic the Indian landscape is right now.
Absolutely. You see this constant balancing act, don't you? Trying to manage this incredibly rich, deep heritage while also pushing forward with really ambitious, future-focused plans.
It's not just a list of news items, is it? You start to see how policy, technology, culture, history, they're all interwoven.
Exactly. They all influence each other in shaping where the country is heading, how it sees itself, and its place in the world.
And hopefully for you, our listener, understanding these shifts gives you a bit more context, equips you to see beyond just the daily headlines and get a deeper grasp of India's trajectory.
Yeah, its impact both domestically and globally.
So as we've seen today, India is navigating this really complex path, isn't it? Trying to reconcile its deep historical roots with just incredibly rapid global change and technological advancement.
It really is. Which leads to maybe a final thought for you to ponder.
Okay.
How do nations, not just India, but any nation, truly reconcile their past identities, their histories, with the relentless pace of global evolution and technology today? And, maybe more importantly, what role do citizens, do you play in shaping that ongoing narrative for the future?
A big question to reflect on. Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive.